My wife cheated with my best friend, then secretly sold our family home for $350, $0, and left me millions in debt. Now they're both suing me to claim ownership of my own inheritance, and I have no idea who's telling the truth anymore. I never thought I'd be the guy writing this kind of story, but here I am. The craziest part. It all started with what I thought was a normal day, until I stumbled across something that flipped my entire world upside down. I was just trying to get through my morning routine, grabbing a coffee and checking my emails, when I noticed something weird on my phone. A text message from an unknown number, but it wasn't the message itself that caught my eye. It was the name attached, Mike, my wife's best friend. That's odd, I thought, because I'd never seen her text him directly before. I hesitated. I trust her mostly. But sometimes I'd catch her acting a little too defensive or weirdly secretive about her phone. I've always been the kind of guy who doesn't pry, but that day, my curiosity got the better of me. I opened the message, and what I saw made my stomach drop. It wasn't just a casual chat. It was a series of flirty texts, things like "can't wait to see you tonight," and "you make me so crazy," and even some explicit talk about sex. I couldn't believe my eyes. My wife Lisa was cheating on me with my best friend Mike. I sat there stunned for a moment, trying to process what I had just read. It felt like a punch to the gut. I wanted to scream, cry, break something all at once. How long had this been going on? Were there more messages? I knew I had to find out more, so I started digging deeper. I checked her phone history, her emails, her social media accounts. Nothing obvious at first, just the occasional late night or secretive calls, but nothing concrete. That's until I remembered the recent change in her behavior. She'd been distant, more irritable, and she'd started hiding her phone more than usual. I'd caught her deleting messages, but I'd never caught her in the act until now. I decided I needed to confront her. I waited until she got home that evening. When she walked in, she looked annoyed, like I was bothering her. I could see the defensive fire in her eyes. I asked her outright about the texts. Her face instantly went pale, then she started lying, saying it was just some stupid joke or that I was reading too much into it. She told me I was paranoid, that Mike was just a friend and I was imagining things, but I knew better. I had seen enough now to know that she was lying. And the worst part, she denied everything even after I showed her the messages. That night I couldn't sleep. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. How could she do this to me, to us? I had built a life with her, trusted her completely, and now I found out she'd been sneaking around with my best friend. The anger boiled inside me, at her, at Mike, and even at myself for not seeing it sooner. But underneath all that anger was a deep, aching sadness. I kept thinking about the future, about what this meant for us, for our marriage, and for everything I believed in. I knew I had to figure out what to do next, but I wasn't ready to make any decisions yet. All I knew was that my world had just shattered, and I was left to pick up the pieces. The next few days were a blur of thoughts, anger, and trying to piece together what I had uncovered. I kept replaying that moment. I found the texts over and over in my head. The betrayal felt like a punch to the stomach every time I thought about it. I couldn't believe Lisa, my wife, the woman I had trusted with everything, could lie so effortlessly. It wasn't just the affair that hurt. It was the fact that she'd been so willing to deceive me, to hide her relationship with Mike. It made me question everything. The years we spent together, the promises we made, whether I ever truly knew her at all. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time I wanted to get everything out in the open. I sat her down in the living room, trying to keep my voice steady. I told her I knew about the affair, showed her the messages, and asked her to be honest. Her reaction was something I didn't expect. Instead of breaking down or admitting guilt, she got defensive and started spinning her own version of events. She said she was stressed, that Mike was just a shoulder to lean on, that they'd never crossed a line until I started snooping around. She called me paranoid, accused me of spying on her, and said I was making a mountain out of a molehill. I couldn't believe her lies. It was like talking to a wall. I felt my blood boiling. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her see how much she'd hurt me, but I held back. Instead, I told her I needed some time to think, that I wasn't going to rush into anything. I left the room quietly, but inside I was raging. How could she lie so convincingly? How could she betray me like this? That night, I stayed up late, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd just learned. I was angry, yes, but also deeply hurt. I kept asking myself how she could do this, how she could betray me and Mike, the guy I'd trusted as my best friend. I felt like a fool for not seeing the signs earlier. I also wondered if she'd done this before, if there was more to her story that I didn't know. The worst part, I still loved her. Somewhere deep inside, I didn't want to believe it was over, but I also knew I couldn't ignore what I had discovered. In the days that followed, I started noticing more things. Small things, really, but enough to make me suspicious. She was more secretive, more manipulative. She'd lie about where she was going, who she was talking to. I found myself becoming more suspicious, more cautious. I couldn't trust her anymore, not completely. And that realization hit me hard. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and once it's broken, nothing can be the same. I started planning what I was going to do next, knowing that I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. I had to decide whether to fight for the marriage or walk away. But I knew one thing: whatever I chose, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I was furious, and I was ready to fight back. Over the next week, everything felt like a waiting game. I kept walking on eggshells, trying to figure out if she was going to come clean or just keep spinning her lies. Every time she left the house, I wondered if she was meeting Mike again or if she was just out running errands. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living with a stranger, someone I no longer recognized. Meanwhile, the financial side of things started to come into focus, things I didn't want to look at but knew I had to. It all started when I decided to check the bank statements. I'd always been careful with our money, but now I looked closer. That's when I saw it. A huge withdrawal, $350 marked as sale of property. My heart stopped. I didn't know she was selling the house. I thought we had plans to upgrade, maybe buy a vacation place. But apparently she'd already sold our family home without telling me. I couldn't believe it. Who does that? Selling our house behind my back. I felt like I'd been punched again, only this time in the stomach. And here's the kicker: she'd already taken the money. I found out she'd transferred it to an account she'd set up under her maiden name, and she'd been hiding it for months. I was furious. How could she do this? Sell our home, drain our savings, and leave me in millions of debt, all while lying to my face. I started digging even deeper. I found emails where she was talking to a lawyer about cutting me out of the inheritance. She was planning her escape, and I was just a pawn in her game. I confronted her about it. I showed her the bank statements, the emails, everything. Her reaction was a mix of anger and denial. She said she had every right to sell the house because I'd been absent emotionally, that I wasn't supportive enough, and that she was done with the whole thing. She called me a terrible husband, said I was controlling, and then threw in that I was just jealous of Mike because I couldn't satisfy her anymore. That hurt more than anything. To her, this was all about her being wronged, like I was just some obstacle she had to get rid of. But I knew the truth. She'd been planning this for months. I found emails where she was trying to get Mike to help her hide the money, talking about how she wanted to start fresh somewhere else. Meanwhile, I was left with the mess. I was drowning in debt, millions in loans I didn't even know about, and I had no idea where the money went or who might be claiming it now. It was chaos. I couldn't tell if I was more angry at her or at myself for trusting her so blindly all these years. And then, out of nowhere, I get served papers. Both her and Mike are suing me for ownership of the inheritance. They're claiming I had a hand in the sale, that I knew about it, and that I'm trying to steal what's rightfully theirs. I don't even know what's real anymore. I thought I was fighting to protect my marriage, but now I realize I might just be fighting to keep what's left of my life from crumbling completely. The betrayal runs so deep I can't tell if I'm more furious or just numb. It's like everything I believed in was a lie, and I'm left holding the pieces of a life I don't recognize. The more I dug into the legal mess, the more it felt like I was sinking into quicksand. I had lawyers now, but even they seemed overwhelmed by what I was facing. Apparently, Lisa and Mike had already started their assault on my claims, and I was just a pawn in their game. They were arguing that I had been complicit in the sale of the house, that I knew about the money transfer, that I was trying to cheat them out of what was rightfully theirs. The worst part: I had no concrete evidence to prove I was innocent, just my word and my gut feeling that I was being played. I remember sitting in my lawyer's office, staring at the thick stack of paperwork, feeling completely helpless. I kept thinking about Lisa's lies, her bitchy attitude when I confronted her, and how she'd always been so good at spinning stories. She told me she was stressed, that she needed a fresh start, that I'd been distant. But all along she was planning her escape with Mike, selling our home, draining every penny, and now trying to turn the tables on me. It was a sick game, and I was the one left to pick up the pieces. I started to realize that her lies were even more elaborate than I thought. She managed to convince her family, her friends, even some of our neighbors that I was the bad guy. She painted me as controlling, jealous, and emotionally distant, things I tried to fix but never succeeded in her eyes. Meanwhile, she was out with Mike, probably screwing him behind my back, then scheming to take everything I had. The betrayal cut so deep I felt like I was losing my mind. How could she do this to me? How could she lie so convincingly, even under oath? In the midst of all this chaos, I had a moment of clarity. I realized I needed to stop playing her game. I couldn't let her and Mike control my life anymore. I decided I'd fight back, not just legally, but emotionally. I started gathering every piece of evidence I could find: emails, bank statements, witness testimonies. I reached out to a few people who knew her well, people who might testify about her behavior, her lies, her manipulation. I knew it was a long shot, but I had to do something. I couldn't just sit around and let her walk away with everything, especially after all we'd been through. The hardest part was coming to terms with the fact that she'd betrayed me not just once but repeatedly. She lied to my face, sold our house behind my back, and then tried to turn me into the villain. I felt humiliated, angry, and betrayed all at once. But somewhere deep inside, I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I had to stop letting her define my life. I had to take control again, even if it meant losing everything: my marriage, my home, my peace of mind. I knew the road ahead was going to be brutal, but I was determined to fight for what was left of my dignity. I wasn't going down without a fight. The legal battle dragged on for what felt like an eternity. Every day felt like a new attack: more subpoenas, more accusations, more lies from Lisa and Mike. I was spending every waking moment trying to piece together the truth and protect what little I had left. The worst part: I was losing sleep, losing weight, losing hope. The betrayal had cut so deep that I started questioning everything about myself. Was I blind? Was I just too trusting? Did I miss all the signs? One day, I decided I needed to get some clarity, so I hired a private investigator. I figured if Lisa and Mike were scheming behind my back, I needed to see what they were really up to. Within days, he came back with some shocking intel. It turned out Lisa had been secretly meeting with lawyers, signing papers, and even opening new bank accounts under false names. Mike, too, was involved in shady deals, trying to hide assets and transfer money offshore. They'd been planning this for months, selling the house, draining the accounts, and trying to leave me with nothing. Hearing all that, I felt a mix of rage and despair. How could they do this? How could she betray me so thoroughly? I remembered all the good times, all the promises we made, and it made me sick to think she had been lying to my face the entire time. I also realized I had to act fast. I couldn't let them get away with it. I gathered all the evidence I could: emails, bank statements, witness testimonies, and filed for an emergency injunction to freeze their assets. I knew it was a long shot, but I had to try. Meanwhile, I was also confronting the emotional fallout. I'd always been a steady guy, but this ordeal was wearing me down. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry, so much anger that sometimes I thought I'd explode. I started seeing a counselor, trying to process my feelings and keep my head clear. I knew I had to stay strong, not just for myself, but for whatever legal battle was coming. I also started reaching out to friends and family, not to vent, but to get some perspective. Some of them couldn't believe Lisa's betrayal. Others warned me that I might never get the truth. But I knew I had to keep fighting, no matter how dark things got. The most shocking moment came when I found out that Lisa had secretly sold our family home for $350, $0. I'd always believed that house was our safe place, the place where we built our life together. Now, she had just handed it over to strangers without telling me for her own escape. I felt like I'd been punched again. I couldn't believe the level of deception. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer, and I was just a pawn in her game. I realized that if I wanted to get any justice, I'd have to fight harder than I ever thought possible. I couldn't let her take everything I had left, my home, my dignity, my future. I was determined to see this through, no matter what it took. In the end, everything I believed about my marriage, my trust, and my life was shattered. The legal fight took months, and every day felt like I was walking through a minefield. I had to testify, produce evidence, and face Lisa and Mike in court. The most painful part was watching her lie under oath, pretending she was innocent while I knew the truth. I saw through her carefully crafted facade, and deep down, I knew I'd never see her the same way again. The court ruling finally came. It was a long, grueling process, but I managed to prove that she had sold our house without my knowledge, that she'd been manipulating the finances, and that she'd been trying to steal what was mine, what I had inherited. The judge ordered her to return the money, and she was hit with a hefty fine for her deception. Mike, too, was held accountable for his part in the scheme. It wasn't the perfect ending, but it was enough to bring some closure. Looking back, I realized that the betrayal changed me. I learned to be more cautious, more guarded, but also more resilient. I found strength I didn't know I had, and I learned that sometimes you have to fight for yourself, even when everything seems lost. I've moved out of the house, started rebuilding my life from scratch, and I'm slowly finding peace again. Trust is hard to regain after it's been broken, but I believe I'll get there someday. To anyone going through something similar, my advice is simple. Don't ignore the red flags, but don't let the betrayal define you. Fight for what's right, protect what's yours, and don't be afraid to ask for help. The pain is real, but so is the strength inside you. Sometimes, life throws the worst at you, but you have to keep going. Because in the end, your own integrity and dignity are worth more than any betrayal. And no matter how deep the betrayal runs, there's always a way to rebuild.